I spent $150K trying to flip a house and it won't sell. Ooh, sounds like a pretty awful position to be in, and also an entirely preventable one as well. You know, when I read stuff like this, all I can do is laugh, because the TV shows that are out there about flipping houses make it look so easy and everybody's making all this money every time they turn around and make $50, $60, $80,000 on a flip, if not even more sometimes. And it's just like, wow, that's easy money. That's more than most people make in a year. Well, it is not easy money at all. You know, these professional flippers, they put a tremendous amount of sweat equity into their projects. You know, they have a network of people that they have built up over years, if not decades, that they can trust to complete their renovations and flips on time. And the most professional ones also really know their market well and can easily spot an undervalued opportunity as a flip, you know, versus somebody who just is getting into this for the first time and you really have no clue. You don't know the market that well. You don't have your network of contractors and electricians and everybody that you need to be able to flip a house properly. That's what a lot of people do. They jump into this and they think that, oh, it's going to be easy. I'm going to be able to just make all this profit just like the pros do. A lot of people have tried this with the Airbnb thing as well. Let me just buy a place and rent it out on Airbnb, and that's going to solve everything. That's going to solve all my problems, you know. But once people actually dive into it, they quickly realize how difficult it is to be an Airbnb host and how much effort and attention needs to go into producing that profit. Same thing goes with flipping a home. And if you dive into flipping a house without the experience, then you cannot expect the same results as people who do this for a living and have been doing it for a long time. But just like anything else, if it's something you're serious about doing, then you have to start from somewhere, right? You have to start with your first flip. You have to eventually learn how to do it and become better at it. That's how everybody learns how to do everything. I would feel very strongly about saying that flipping homes really isn't for amateurs, guys. Like, if you are somebody that just wants to casually do this as like a hobby, it's not a hobby, because it costs a lot of money to flip a house and there's a tremendous amount of carrying costs when it comes to doing this. So the whole idea of flipping is that you buy it and you turn the house around as fast as possible. You get it into the best condition you possibly can for the lowest price, and you turn around and sell it for the highest amount of profit you possibly can. That's the definition of a flip. But if one of those factors is missing, say it takes too long to sell the house, you renovated it and everything was good, your cost basis was good, but it takes 9 months or a year to sell it, any potential profit you would have made has been wiped out on that property. Same thing is true if you're able to sell it fast, but you had to put way more money into the renovations and repairs than you initially thought, and you end up losing money that way. So if you want to prevent this sort of situation from happening to you, where you spend a tremendous amount of money, over 6 figures, on flipping a house and then it's not selling, there's a few things you can do ahead of time to make sure that you avoid this situation. The number one thing is to know your real estate market. Like, for example, the guy in this story is trying to do this in Dallas, Texas, okay? And Redfin right now is reporting a 7.6% increase in median home prices in December of 2024 over the previous year. But homes are also taking about 56 days to sell compared to 31 in 2023. So right off the bat, this person may have their expectations out of line with reality in terms of how long it will take to sell this house. However, even just looking at how much a median price point has gone up in any given area is not an exact indicator that this is going to be what's going to happen for you. Just because Dallas has gone up 7.6% doesn't mean every single zip code in Dallas or every single neighborhood in Dallas is seeing that appreciation. That's just an average for the area. And I would assume that this person already has a real estate agent, because most of the time flippers will enlist a real estate agent to sell the house on their behalf. But say they don't, they obviously should get one, because this will help them determine what the real selling price should be for this home. Because another way that people go wrong, they get their expectations out of line with reality in terms of what the house should be selling for. How much can I really flip this house for? And even having a bad real estate agent can also influence that as well, because some agents will just tell you whatever you want to hear just so you hire them. And unfortunately, if that happens, then they could really end up losing you a lot of money as a home flipper too. So it's very important that this is another person in your network, a good real estate agent that can help you. If anybody ever needs a good real estate agent, whether you're a buyer or a seller, I can provide that for you completely for free. I have a link for that down in the description below of all of my videos. But really, the most obvious way to get out of a situation like this and probably just take your losses and go is to just cut the price dramatically, sell the house, and move on, guys. If you're gonna lose money, you're gonna lose money. But you're losing money either way. You're losing money sitting there holding on to the house each month, paying the mortgage, paying the property taxes, the insurance, the utility bills, everything that comes along with it. And every month that house sits vacant is another month of potential profit loss. So you really need to kind of do the math on that and be like, okay, is it worth it for this house to sit empty for another 6 months? How much is that going to cost me versus if I lower the price by 10 or 15% and just get rid of it now? But ideally, the best situation to end up in is not even ending up in this situation to begin with, which is easily preventable, right? But I've shown you guys countless numbers of listings here in Miami on my walks where people bought the house 1 year, 2 year, 3 years ago for crazy amounts of money, even back then. And now they're asking even crazier amounts of money today, now that the market has turned. And Miami is a perfect example of what I've been talking about here so far with this flip situation. So when you look at Miami on paper, home prices in Miami have been going up on a percentage base year over year. But what you can't see from that data is that the market here has changed significantly, meaning that the inventory levels have skyrocketed here. The days on market have also skyrocketed, which means that buyer demand has dried up. And so regardless of what a few home sales are saying, that doesn't tell the whole picture and the whole story of the market. Because as somebody who's boots on the ground and who's walking around here all the time, I'm seeing these homes sit on the market for 6 months or a year and not selling, which is a clear indicator that no one's willing to pay the price the seller is asking. And if you're attempting to flip a house like that, well, good luck. You're not going to be making any money because just the sheer amount of time the house has been sitting available on the market. Even if you have no mortgage, guys, it doesn't matter because these houses here are very expensive, and even with no mortgage, the carrying costs are quite high. But my opinion is leave the home flipping to the professionals, guys. I'm not saying don't try your hand at something if it's something you really have a passion for and something you really think you can do, especially if you're a DIYer, if you have a lot of skills that you're able to implement and keep the costs of flipping the home down significantly, then I would say, yeah, go for it if you really feel like you can and you find the great opportunity and you know your market well. I'm not telling people you should never try anything and never try to make a buck in this world. I'm just saying that it's not for people who think, well, I have 150 grand on the side, let me just invest it in this house and try to flip it even though I know nothing about flipping houses and I'm not really going to have a hands-on experience with it. That's a mistake. If you're just looking for a place to park 150 grand, you're gonna have a lot of other better options. There's REITs if you wanna be in real estate, there's the stock market, there's gold and silver. There's a lot of other things that you can do. I saw this interesting story too that talked about this couple who paid off their mortgage early. They said that it was not nearly as freeing as they thought it would be. Like a lot of people's dream after they end up getting into the house is someday to have no mortgage and pay that thing off, right? Because that's the ultimate way to really own your own property, except you never really own it. Just try not paying your property tax bill. You could say that a lot of people would like to get to a point in life where they're mortgage free, especially in retirement. The thinking from this couple was, like once we get the mortgage paid off, we're gonna have all this extra money each month that they can use for pretty much anything they want. They can go out for fancy dinners, they can buy new clothes, they can buy a better car. Of course, they can also start saving and investing more money if they want to as well. So this is how it worked out for them. They bought a foreclosed house back in 2011 when prices and interest rates were really in a good place back then, so much better than now. and their mortgage was only $150,000. And what they did is they took second jobs, like side jobs essentially, on top of their full-time jobs, and they refinanced the 30-year mortgage to a 15-year one. Obviously cut the repayment time in half already, and it cuts down the amount of interest you're going to pay over the life of the loan as well. And then one of them was involved in a bad car accident. They got a big settlement from it, which was able to allow them to pay off 80% of the loan. But when they finally got to the point where they thought maybe we could actually pay this thing off, they said, well, let's take a second look at it and see if this is really the best financial move for us and our family. The financial advisor said it made more sense for them to actually put the money into investments rather than pay off their mortgage, especially since they had a 3.25% mortgage rate. And obviously they could get a better return than that by investing in the market. But even though they knew the financial advisor was right, they actually didn't really take his advice, and they decided to pay off the mortgage anyways. They took a little bit of the money that they got from this settlement, and they did put some of it in investments, but the rest of it they used to pay off a good chunk of the mortgage. And within the next 3 years, they were completely out from under it and had no mortgage. So now this gave them a full $1,100 extra each month that they had on their budget that they didn't have before. You know what happened to them? The same thing that happens to every homeowner that I constantly keep drilling into everyone's mind here on the channel. They said, you know, even though they had the mortgage paid off, the car and the house maintenance piled on. They had to get a new water heater for the house. They had to get a new catalytic converter for the car. They had insurance deductibles for their family, and none of those expenses just disappeared because they had no mortgage. But you could easily argue to say that now it's much easier to meet those financial obligations or surprises that come up, since they had this extra $1,100 a month in their budget that they wouldn't have had before. And of course, this didn't make them immune from paying higher property taxes and higher insurance along the way like everybody else has to. And they said that the whole situation is just kind of underwhelming. You know, they said they basically didn't realize that the money that they saved from the mortgage would disappear pretty fast towards other bills and unexpected expenses. And also they have a little bit of regret now when it comes to not investing that full settlement check into the stock market, especially with how great the returns have been over the past several years. And you know, if they would have done that, they would have seen their portfolio grow substantially more than it has, rather than paying off their mortgage at a 3.25% interest rate. But of course, one of the biggest benefits that they have now that the mortgage is paid off is they do have that extra flexibility when it comes to their finances in case of these surprise expenses, or the insurance goes up a little more than you wanted to, or you do have that big car repair, whatever. They have that extra $1,100 a month, so that's good. And of course, above all else, which is probably the number one reason people like to have a paid off home, is they have peace of mind. They just know that they're not going to have to worry about being kicked out of their home. You know, they have their house paid off, and everything's going to be fine as long as they keep paying their property taxes. They'll have that house forever. And that is a nice security to have, especially in today's uncertain world. And speaking of insurance, one of my viewers brought something to my attention that is worth talking about here that people need to know about. So recently, their homeowner's insurance came up for renewal, and they have AAA. And they have been a customer since 1987. So that's since I've been alive, a very long time. But he said, listen, after reading the new policy, I noticed they changed my policy account number, which made them suspicious. And then upon further investigation into this renewal, they said in order to continue to do business with AAA, that they were required to provide AAA a power of attorney. So when he questioned AAA about this, they said it was a convenience for their customers so that they can make changes as they see fit to the policy. Okay, so without my knowledge, you're just going to make changes on my behalf? Sounds great. And this person says after all these years, never had any insurance claims ever, okay? Moving forward, this is going to be a requirement. So whether you want to or not, you are going to have to sign this power of attorney if you want to remain insured with AAA, guys. And he says, like, listen, my biggest concern with this is that AAA will raise their rates to reduce their coverage to compensate for the huge losses in places like California and Florida, where we're seeing all these major disasters. And to make things even shadier, he tried to contact his insurance agent, and he found out that after all these years working with this insurance agent, he just suddenly disappeared. And what happened was they forced the insurance agent to retire, and as a condition of the retirement, he was unable to contact any of his clients. The moral of this story here is that you need to read your insurance policy before you renew. Some people just blindly renew it. I would say probably almost everybody does, especially today. You're even happy to even get a renewal letter, right? A lot of people now are worried about getting a non-renewal letter. The same advice holds true if you get a non-renewal and you have to go with a new insurance company as well. Because every time you're going to switch a policy, you have to understand what you're getting yourself involved with. The problem is, as you might imagine, is that insurance options are becoming extremely limited. And let's say you only have the option to get AAA, for example. Nobody else will insure you for a fair price. And then you're just kind of stuck doing whatever they're forcing you to do, like in this situation. Whether you like it or not, you could be on the hook in giving them the power of attorney to make all these changes on your behalf, even if you don't want to. Unfortunately, he didn't tell me what he ended up deciding to do. I'll have to get a follow-up and see what he ended up doing, you know, what decision he made, like if he ended up sticking with AAA anyways, or ended up finding another insurance company that didn't require this. But the crazy thing is, guys, you can see like all of these companies, everybody is just like taking away your control little by little, right? There's been talk of doing CBDCs for the government, digitizing the dollar, which would take away a tremendous amount of our control. You have this situation, involuntarily signing over power of attorney to an insurance company to keep insurance. You have to agree to all these companies' terms and conditions when you're going to sign up for any type of service now, and you have no idea what's in there unless you spend 5 hours reading this and understanding and comprehending what it even says. Like little by little, our privacies and our liberties are being stripped away, which is a pretty concerning thing right now. The other day, when I talked about how the mortgage industry was hurting pretty badly right now, I mentioned in that story that what a lot of mortgage companies are doing right now is instead of trying to get people to buy a house or to refinance a house, they're trying to get a lot of equity-rich homeowners into a home equity line of credit. This way they don't have to actually give up their low mortgage rate, and these mortgage companies can still make some money off the homeowners. As of January 22nd, the average HELOC rate was 8.28%. It's obviously pretty high, and it can fluctuate. You know, this is an adjustable rate loan. This is not a fixed rate loan. And basically the tactic that a lot of these lenders are doing right now to get people to take the bait and sign up for these HELOC loans is what the home builders are doing. They will give you an aggressively low promotional rate. Like for example, they'll give you a 6.99% introductory rate, and that's usually fixed for about 6 months to a year. And after that, it adjusts to whatever the market rate is. So that's the same thing as these mortgage rate buy downs that the home builders have been doing. You know, it lures in the buyer like, well, I can get a 3.5% mortgage rate today, but by the time it fully kicks in after the 3-year buy down is over, I'm gonna be back up to 7%. But that initial buy-in looks enticing and it works. But here's what you have to understand about a home equity line of credit, guys. This is not like a credit card, which is an unsecured form of debt. If you don't pay your credit card, there are no consequences other than the fact that it might get sent to collections and you are going to hurt your credit score pretty substantially. Okay, but other than that, you know, other than the side effects of having a bad credit score, you are not going to have your life turned upside down. But if for some reason you can't pay for that home equity line of credit, you are going to be in a foreclosure situation and they will take your house because you did not pay this. So just because the rates are lower than a credit card doesn't mean it is the better deal. Like for example, right now, if you wanted to tap $50,000 of your home equity to renovate your kitchen, if you borrow at 8.28% with a 10-year payback schedule, the debt will end up costing you about $613 a month, which they say right here assumes that the HELOC rate will stay the same. Well, it's an adjustable rate loan, so you know for sure it's not going to stay the same. And right now, interest rates are a lot higher than people anticipated they would be at this point, so we don't know how high interest rates are going to go in the future or how long they will stay high for. And think about that for a minute. Now you're in a situation where you have an extra $613 a month that you have to pay on top of your mortgage and on top of all the other expenses of being a homeowner. And this is also why I tell everybody that if you can't actually afford a renovation or something like that on your own without taking out debt, then you can't actually afford it, which kind of goes with pretty much anything you want to take debt out on. But does it really make sense to be paying, almost 9% interest on renovating your kitchen? I don't think so. And especially to have that debt attached to your house and put you in a bad spot if for some reason you can't pay it off, also doesn't sound worth it. State Farm, they just announced that they're going to be raising homeowners insurance rates in California by an additional 22%. Well, just a few weeks ago, I made a video talking about that throughout California in general, most people are going to see about a 30 to 40% increase in their homeowners insurance this year. Well, this is an emergency increase that's going to be starting on May 1st, which State Farm claims is to avert a dire situation for the company's finances following the fires. They asked to raise premiums for renters and condo owners by 15% and 38% for landlords. Let's see for a second how much money the CEO at State Farm earns. How much does the CEO of State Farm make each year?
Tipsord earned $2.4 million in salary in the latest financial year, according to a filing obtained by the news outlet Crain's Chicago Business from the Nebraska Department of Insurance. The amount is 14% higher than the State Farm CEO salary of $2.1 million the year before. Overall, Tipsord received a total of $24.4 million in compensation in 2022, almost equivalent to the $24.5 million he earned in the previous year.
So think about that. The CEO of State Farm earns $2.4 million a year just in their salary. But the total earnings is more like $24.5 million, well, 10 times more than their actual salaries, guys. And that's just one employee. The head guy, the CEO, makes over $24 million a year from this company. But yet they're sitting there crying about how broke that they are, and they're not going to be able to pay claims, just like the US government, right? Look at all the wasteful spending that they're trying to weed out now with the DOJ department and all of that, and they're already, coming up with millions, if not billions of dollars that can be cut from our budget pretty quickly here. I guarantee you, probably the same thing is true for these insurance companies, but they sit here and cry broke and make everybody think that, well, if we don't, if we can't raise the rates, then we're just going to have to pull out and not insure anybody here. Now, they did just pay out 8,700 claims due to the LA wildfires, and which was equal to about $1 billion, but that's a drop in the bucket considering that the losses are estimated to be over $275 billion now. So, $1 billion out of the $275 billion is not really that much that they're on the hook for. The biggest concern with that, though, is that they say that this $275 billion in losses, that the full cost will actually be split among local and federal governments, insurers, and residents. So how much money is the federal government going to print to bail out these losses, guys? We don't know yet, but we know for sure it's probably coming. And that's just going to add more debt to our growing deficit that we already can't afford. And this also puts everybody in a situation nationwide, but particularly in California, where insurance is going to cost more in the future because the rates are going to have to be more closely aligned with the risk. And every time one of these situations happen, these insurance companies can point to that and say, well, look, we told you so. This is the reason why rates got to go up another 30%. And next thing you know, you get hit with the non-renewal notice or your policy number changed, and then you're forced to sign a power of attorney just to keep your homeowner's insurance. So if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe to the channel. And if you don't want to wait for my next video to come out, check out this one on the screen right over here, and I'll see you in the next one.